everyone. On this episode of Teeter Talks, I have a treat for you. His name is Cam F. Awesome. That's right. I said awesome. And I'm sure now you're definitely going to tune in to hear this incredible man's story. He was captain of the USA boxing team. He talks about his journey to the Olympics. He was featured in a Netflix documentary series called Counterpunch, where they featured his story, his journey. He's just such a remarkable individual. He does public speaking and motivational speaking now. He's also a diversity consultant, an event MC, and everything in between. He's just such an incredible person with so many nuggets of wisdom, so many great stories, and so many incredibly valuable takeaways. You're really going to enjoy this episode. I'm sure of it. Everyone, please enjoy Cam F. Awesome. Hello, Cam F. Awesome. How are you?
I'm hashtag blessed. It's a good day.
Blessed. Well, you have so much energy. I'd like to just bottle it and put it in my coffee every morning.
Oh, double shot of espresso this morning. Yes. I just started drinking coffee for the first time in my life.
My husband doesn't even drink coffee. He thinks it smells terrible and won't even taste it. And I don't understand.
It is terrible, but I don't drink anymore. But I didn't necessarily like the taste of tequila. I just like the way it made me dance. So sometimes you deal with something for the effect, and that's how I deal with coffee.
That's fair. Well, welcome back. We missed you in the coffee world, and happy to have you. So we're going to come back to your amazing, awesome name later. We will tell the whole world how that came to be. But you and I met in Nashville, I guess, a couple of months ago. We were at a speakers conference, and you were so friendly and lovely, and we had a couple of conversations. And then you got on stage the second day of this conference. I think you had, 5 minutes to prepare?
Four.
Yeah. But in those 4 minutes, oh my God, you got a standing ovation. Your words were so impactful. And then I was just thinking, the whole world needs to hear this man's story. Wow. How was that experience for you, putting your life story and all that energy into 4 minutes?
Pretty scary, not even scary, random, because I didn't understand the implications of what I was doing. Yeah. Which that's another thing. People put too much pressure on themselves and then they underperform. But someone was sitting next to me in the Impact 11 conference, and they said something about a website. I wasn't paying attention. I was on my phone, and the lady next to me couldn't read it on the screen. So I typed the website in my phone to make sure it was right before I show her. And it was something about signing up. So I just signed up, but I didn't know what it was for. And the next morning I got an email from Jenny, and I sent it to my manager. I was like, "Hey, I'm doing a 4-minute story." Yeah.
She's so that wasn't prepared or planned?
No, she told me I probably shouldn't do it because it's something you should plan for. She's like, because no one knows who I am. So she's like, you're going to be speaking in front of a lot of people. You don't want to have a bad first impression.
This can't be your coming out party.
Yeah. But I'm like, I'm dope. It's 4 minutes.
You're like, I can do anything for 4 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it was an amazing 4 minutes. I had no idea that was completely unprepared.
I at 10:45, we had a 30-minute break.
Yes, we did.
And I went over by the bathroom with Kelly B, and I went over it a couple times just to make sure it was, that had a little bit of time.
Okay, so I don't want to keep people hanging too much longer, because I'm sure the fact that your last name is awesome has drawn a lot of people to this podcast. But I want to go back. Let's go way back to your childhood, because that's really what you spoke about in Nashville that was so captivating. You and I share something in common with our childhoods. We were both bullied. You were bullied physically, which I could not imagine. And I was bullied verbally and mentally, I guess. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood. And I'm curious if you think, because I know you'll tell kind of how your teachers and parents handled it, but do you think they handled that properly? I think about that all the time. Even my mom says to me, did I handle that properly? And I don't even, if my kids are being bullied today, I'm not even sure how I would handle it. But let's go back. Talk about your experience.
So for me, my bullying was physical, and I guess everybody wants something they don't have, because I'm like cyberbullying, verbal bullying, I'll take that, but everyone's pain. Yeah. Some pains don't have scars, but I was dealing with physical bullying, and it got pretty bad to the point I was sent to the hospital with a concussion in, I believe it was 4th grade. And my school solution was to release me 10 minutes early at the end of the day so I could get home before my bully got to me. So that's what started all this. Like, I remember thinking if this was happening to my child, I would burn down these people's homes.
Yeah,
Uh,
same. I'll come
I
with you.
or I every time if someone beats up my son, I go beat up his dad.
Like that, isn't that
And
the natural instinct? Like I especially when it's perpetual and it's chronic and there's been interventions, but nothing's happening. Like, or imagine that was your kid beating somebody up.
oh well, yeah, yeah.
I
And a
could not
lot of times
imagine.
and I don't have kids, but if I have this like if someone did that to my kid, I'm showing up to that kid's parents' house. We gonna have dinner together. I'm showing up to the house every single day. And if they can't figure it out, you have to put somebody in a position where they'll find a way to figure it out.
Yeah, like I mean, it's come up, I would say, in different form, like lesser, more serious forms in my kids' lives. And I do think that speaking as parents is helpful. And I mean, let's talk. Obviously, we want to work through this. Not all parents are receptive to that. I will tell you, people get super protective of their kids. But on the flip side of it, it's opening up those lines of communications and giving these kids a different way to come at these problems instead of through their evil ways, be it through words or physical activities. But I think it's such a tough one because I know when I was a kid, this is back in the day where for these people who were bullying me to get to me had to get through my parents, right? You call the home phone, my parents pick up, you have to get to me. Like being home was my safe space to a certain degree. So I appreciate that your teachers let you out early, which to me is also crazy that they wouldn't really do anything about it. They just gave you a head start. What about at home? Like, tell the story about how you got into boxing and why that was kind of a necessity.
So first, I'll say, like with the bully, because everyone back in the day when they're telling stories about their childhood, they were the toughest guy on the block. They were fighting everyone, and I wasn't that dude. But my family are those type of people. So
Mm.
they're like, "Oh, you getting beat up," and they laugh.
Oh,
So in high school, I got beat up by a girl, which I say that because it's funnier that way, but I'm not going to hit a girl back. Like, so I had an altercation with a girl, and then I decided I was going to join a boxing gym because my goal was to just look intimidating because then people would just leave me alone. And
were
that
you
was,
super skinny? Was that the issue? Like they thought you were an easy
oh no,
target, or they just knew you wouldn't fight back, or you couldn't fight back?
I was a chubster. Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, Bosoms was the nickname.
Bosoms. Oh my God, kids are
Bosoms.
relentless.
Oh, they're terrible.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
they are terrible. As an adult, I can laugh about it, but yeah.
Well, see, if you ever have a child, this is the fun game that my husband and I played, naming our children. So I would come up with a name that I liked, and he would think of every way to make fun of it. Like like he just like regressed to his like 10-year-old self and just thought of every way to destroy it. And we went through a lot of names, and I was like, oh gosh. So I'm not even
Where'd
sure
we
the ones we
land?
picked are fully resilient, but we're hopeful. But
Where'd
yeah.
we land on names?
Oh, my son's name is Beckett, so we call him Wreck-It Beckett.
Oh, okay.
And we're pretty good with that name. Yes, it's close to bucket and words that rhyme with bucket. But my daughter's name is Hunter, which we're good with, but she doesn't like that she has a name, like a boy name. Although one day she will appreciate, I keep telling her it's not a boy name. It's a powerful name. And one day she'll appreciate it. She's just not there yet.
Oh, Jamie Foxx changed his name legally to Fox because at open mics when they would call up comics,
Oh.
they would want to have some diversity and have women up there. So Jamie Foxx with two X's, people would think it was a female and then he would get on stage. So her being Hunter, she would probably be assumed to be a man, which isn't too hurtful.
No, sadly, it'll probably open more doors because of that. It's funny. I was just listening to a podcast with Ice-T, and he talked about changing his name to Ice-T because his name was Tracy, and he got beat up for having a girl's name all the time. So he changed his name to Ice-T. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, I mean, look at it. Like we're onto a theme here of people changing their names. We'll get to that part of the story. But so you go home, you lose this fight, or you maybe just don't fight back in high school with a girl, and
Yeah.
you decide to go to a boxing gym, which was the closest gym, I think. I think it was just
Yeah, it was the only free gym in the neighborhood,
okay.
right up my price range. And I tried out for other for teams at school, but I didn't make a team. I was like wasn't very athletic.
Mm.
Sports wasn't really my thing, but boxing didn't matter to me because I was just going to I was going to jump the rope, hit the bag, and do what they do. And I figured if I did that, I'd look like them.
And you did.
I ended up not looking like them,
Oh no.
but I ended up winning a lot.
Well,
Like, yeah, that was,
that helps.
that worked out. But
Yeah.
when I started boxing, I understood so the way my brain works is like, I understand systems.
Right.
And when I learned about I started going to the boxing gym to lose weight, and I lost so much weight that my coach was like, "Hey, you're ready to spar." And I was like, "Oh, I don't think my mom's going to let me." And everyone laughed. And I was like, "I'm joking. I'll get a mouthpiece." And I was I was afraid because
Yeah.
I've never done well with confrontation.
No, and who wants
So
to be hit in the face? Like,
definitely not
what
this
you
guy.
gonna do? No.
So that was my whole thing. It's like I didn't want to get hit. So I ran from my opponent the entire sparring session. And I burned so many calories. I felt like in that few minutes, then I do the entire workout. Otherwise, then I got addicted to sparring.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was cool because I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was never on a team. So I never felt that camaraderie,
Mm.
but it was the first time I've ever felt necessary
Mm.
because everyone liked sparring me because I was a big guy. I didn't throw a lot of punches, and I'd run from you and you can hit me as hard as you want. Everyone loved sparring me. And I was afraid to miss the gym because what if I missed the gym and someone showed up to spar me that day?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to disappoint them.
So, but just for context, if I remember from your 4-minute story, this gym was not close by. Like you walked far to get to this free gym.
So so in high school, this 11th grade. So I started boxing that first year in New York. My senior year, my parents moved to Florida,
Okay.
where then my boxing gym was 6 miles from my high school,
Oh my gosh.
which,
Yeah.
which could have been like traumatizing. But again, the way my brain works is like, I realized I got down to Florida. No one knows who I am. I can become anyone I want. I don't have to be that awkward because I started to lose the weight and become cool at the boxing gym. And I
Ah.
was confident at the boxing gym. But the second I walked into those doors at school, I regressed to my
Mm.
former self.
Hmm.
And it reminds me of a quote, Charles Horton Cool. Someone look it up.
Yeah.
I'm
We'll
not,
fact check it later.
I'm not who I think I am. I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I'm what I think you think I am.
Oh gosh. Yes.
I'll say that again for the listener. So I'm
Yeah.
not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am because I don't know what you think. I am what I think you think I am. So I realized in New York, I thought everyone thought I was this unconfident, goofy guy. And I felt like an obligation to fulfill that role to make those people happy. How many times do we change something in our lives and we're afraid to let people know, even if it's our hair, because we don't want people to say, "Oh, look at her, Marissa changed." Like we do all this work to change, but we're afraid to show it.
Yeah. Yeah. And constantly worrying what other people think as opposed to what we think about all the things that we're doing.
Yeah. So when I
Right.
got down to Florida, I just pretended to be a combination of a bunch of cool people who were obnoxious and loud in New York. Hook, line, and sinker, everyone in my high school bought it. They thought I was this confident, cool kid who moved from New York. And I definitely pushed up my New York accent at the time. Like I want everyone to know I'm from New York. So my boxing gym, the problem was my boxing gym was 6 miles away from my high school. So I had to take a 3-hour walk every day after school.
Mm.
This is back before like iPods existed, but it was too expensive. I didn't have one. So I just like walked with my thoughts and I would make up stories in my head to keep myself entertained. And then if I'm going to make up a story, I'm going to be the superhero, the
Yeah.
protagonist of every story I make. So I was kicking butt in all these stories. I was knocking everyone out. I had all the cars, all the jewelry, all the money. None of this was true, but it was just like, you could just talk to yourself for free? It doesn't cost anything to
I do
make
it all
up
the
cool
time.
stories. Yeah. Oh, we all do it all the time. But what are the stories we make up? Because the stories I made up was I was amazing. I was invincible. I was
Right.
unstoppable. And more highly I spoke of myself during the walk, the better I did at the gym. And the better that I did at the gym, more excited I was to walk the next day. And it created a feedback loop.
Mm.
And the pendulum had swung. I went from this like awkward, clumsy, quiet, reserved, anxious person. I became cocky. Like the pendulum had swung. My didn't stink. Like there's nothing I could do wrong. I was feeling myself
All because
entirely.
of the narrative of the stories you were telling yourself.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I would say the really nice things about myself, and then I would go in the gym, and I did everything. It worked.
Yeah.
And if it just kept working, And then I started my boxing career 2-2, 2 wins, 2 losses. And then I went on like a 20 fight win streak when I got down to Florida based off this confidence. And everyone thought I was a secret great boxer from New York that they didn't hear about. So I kind of fell into the story too. And within 2 years, I qualified for the 2008 Olympic trials. And it was like I went from a kid who couldn't make a team in high school. 2 years later, I'm like
Unbelievable.
in Houston at the Olympic trials.
I love this story so much because I think we all get caught up in our own heads, right? We're living and dying by our stories, but nobody really gives himself a chance to reinvent themselves sometimes, to pivot, to start new things, to like, why not just show up with as that person as you want to be? Like, this is the person I am. This is the person I want to be. What's stopping you from being that person? Really, it's probably just what's happening between your two ears. And the gap is a gap that you have filled with stories and narrative and excuses and objections. I love this. I love that call it manifest, whatever the word you want to use, that you ultimately made it happen. Now, you obviously put in the work, and I'm going to read, I don't generally read notes during this podcast, but you talked about within 2 years of starting to learn how to box, you won the national championship. You were the number one super heavyweight boxer in the country. You hold 4 Golden Glove championships, 6 US championships, 3 PAL national championships, 6 ringside championships, and you were part of 3 Olympic trials. And you hold the winningest boxer record in the USA boxing history.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot when you say
You're
it like
such
that.
an underachiever, really.
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, like, I was able to accomplish all those things just because I thought I should. If I thought I didn't know any, I was so dumb when, like, now I look back at it. I remember I had like 10 fights, and I remember thinking, okay, it's probably likely I'm the greatest in the world. And I'd win. And then I look back at videos of me fighting. I was like, I was terrible. I don't know how anyone let me beat them back then.
It's funny to me too because you have you're featured in a Netflix documentary called Counterpunch. It's so good. I recommend everybody go watch it. It features three boxers. One is the journey of an amateur who wants to be pro. One is someone who is pro, and then there's you who's just chasing this Olympic dream and trying to get to the Olympic qualifiers. And it's so funny because I don't even know how to say it. You just looked way too happy and friendly to be a boxer. Like. And even now, I mean, people are meeting you and they're getting to hearing your voice. They're seeing your big smile. I mean, you're talking about being this cocky, guy from New York down to Florida. It's so funny to me because you really, even in your boxing style, people talk about it being unconventional. You have this massive smile on your face after the boxing matches when you win. Like how did you show up with so much joy and happiness? Was this just all part of the narrative and the story? Like, this is just how it was going to be?
So it was because I learned about my internal dialogue. So I lost the Olympic trials in 2008, and I was boxing less than 2 years. I'm proud to make it there.
Yeah.
But there's 8 boxers in my weight class. 7 of them, everyone but me, either turned pro or quit. And a thing went off in my head, and I don't know why, but I thought, like, if everyone leaves and I don't, aren't I automatically the best?
Right. Works for me.
And the thing is, like, in our lives, when we fall short or we fail, we're like, oh, I should quit now. It's like, no, you now have experience on your side.
Yes.
You're now, like, I was the boxer that went to the Olympic trials. No other boxer in my weight class now with the Olympic trials. Everyone looked at me as the head honcho, the big dog, the guy who was here the last Olympic cycle. And even though I was only been here a year, and now they've been here a year, like, I'm just a year older than everyone else. I'm grandfathered in as the most experienced guy. And I walked into the first tournament after 2008 Olympic trials, after I lost. I walked into the 2008 national championships as that winner already. Like, I made myself the guy to beat mentally. And I won that first championship. And I was like, well, if I did this once, and I know myself, I put in all the work part sucks, and I don't want to gloss over that. I worked very hard. I didn't see family. I miss holidays. I miss Christmases. I miss funerals. I do not miss workouts. And it's because I need to be better than you. And for me to tell myself, because before I walk into a ring, I know my opponent. Let's say his name is Steve. Marissa, I'm better than Steve. I'm a better person than Steve. I'm a better student than Steve. I'm a better boxer than Steve. I'm a better father than Steve. I don't even have children. I'm better than Steve in every single way. And what I need Steve to do is just believe that a little bit. I just need him to believe me a little bit.
Is it possible
And
that Cam is better than me?
so I would do specific things. Like I wore a pink skirt, by the way. I fought in a pink skirt.
You've done a lot of funny things. Yes.
Yeah. And it was for breast cancer. It said I heart boobs, and I would sell t-shirts and raise money for breast cancer because the lady at my boxing facility was suffering with breast cancer. She's good now.
Yes.
But I wanted my opponent to know that I was mentally better than them. And when you go to a tournament, there's guys who are like, they're beating their chest. They got their shirt off. They want everyone to know they're there. And then there's a group of kids in the corner just sitting crisscross applesauce, poking each other, joking around and giggling. Those are the killers. Those are all the people who won last year, and they don't have to pretend to be tough. Once I realized that, I was like, oh, I'm just going to smile and do thumbs up all the time because I'm already good. I use that momentum I won nationals every year. I was captain of the USA national boxing team. Lived in Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs for more than half the time for about 10 years. And in 2012, I won the Olympic trials to represent the U.S. in the London Olympics, but subsequently was suspended and kicked off the Olympic team for not filling out paperwork.
This is the most devastating part of your story that you told, that you were like the first guy to not make it to the Olympics due to poor paperwork.
Yeah. And what is, in my defense, which I did my suspension, I did my time or whatever. It wasn't actually a real offense. No one's been suspended for it before. No. It was just a couple months after Lance Armstrong went on Oprah.
Right. So for the listeners, it was, you had to do regular drug testing and make yourself available, and the address, just based on the paperwork, it didn't come together. It's not like you had anything to hide. You never tested positive, but as per the policy that's black and white, this is what happens when you don't meet your drug testing.
And not even mentioned in the documentary, when they showed up to test me, I was fighting in a tournament that you had to get drug tested to by the same drug testing agency to compete in. But I didn't put in my paperwork, and that was my responsibility. It was hard to eat, though, because it didn't need to happen in my mind.
Yeah. And, you and I talked about this. Like, I've interviewed Olympians on this podcast before. I am friends with Olympians. There's something really magical about you group of humans, because you get one shot every 4 years. But really the work that happens is for the other, 3 years, 11 months and 29 days, right? That's where all the magic happens. That's where all the work is, but you get one shot every 4 years. And so, things don't go as planned. It's not like you can get back on that horse tomorrow, right? It's not like you can get back at her next week. You got 4 years now. That's such a long, most things in life, when we fail or things don't go our way, generally we can get back at it fairly quickly and kind of brush ourselves off and move forward. You didn't have that luxury. And in fact, that was a big blow to you because, and again, for context, I don't want to give away too much from the Netflix series, but the reason why everyone wants to go pro, and you talked about 9 of your colleagues going pro out of the group of 10, it's because that's where the money is. There's no money in amateur boxing, right? Like, how much were you living off? Like $1,000 a month or something like that?
$1,000 a month.
Yeah.
So let's say rent's $500, which
if you're lucky, living maybe in a trunk of your car.
I rented a room in a basement for 7 years. And so let's say rent's $500, your phone bill's $100, car insurance is $200. And let's say gas is $100.
Like, you're an Olympic athlete, you're a heavyweight champion, you probably need food.
Yeah. And the thing is, I couldn't even get a job because no job's going to give me 3 weeks off to go to Colorado Springs to train and then another 3 weeks off to go to Russia to compete. Like, no job's giving you 6 weeks off.
Right. And you need to train and you need to be flexible. Yeah. This is the problem that a lot of my friends who are athletes face, is that it's so expensive to take care of yourself and eat and do all the things. What kind of job do you have in the meantime? How do you make that all work? So yeah. So everyone's going pro because that's where the money is. That's where the fame and glory is. That's where, we know all the pro boxers. We can't name the names of any amateur boxers or Olympians because they're not famous. Everyone wants to be Floyd Mayweather and have all the jewels and the cars and the money. But yeah, so you really wanted this. This is something you worked really hard for. You wanted to represent your country, made that very clear in the documentary. This is what mattered to you. The pro opportunity was always going to be there, I suppose. So you get disqualified. and you
Yeah.
can't go to the Olympics. Let's talk about life after that.
Well, immediately I was living in LA at the time at this boxing facility that like they were paying me to to train with their guys. And when I got suspended, they're the first people to call me and they said, "Hey, we found out what happened. Don't bother coming back here. Let us know where we should mail your stuff." And so I lost my income, I lost my home,
Oh my
and
goodness.
like I got that call. The next call I made is my buddy Matt Mays, and I'm like, "Hey, I need that couch." And he's like, "It's always here." And
Aw.
in my mind, I know like I took a lot of chances in life because I knew I always had Matt's couch. If things went wrong, because I don't usually have a safety net,
Mm.
and I believe if you don't have a safety net, you're less likely to fall.
Funny how that works.
Oh yeah, I know there's a lot of people who if you get too much external support, you never feel like you have to hold yourself up on your own.
Right.
And when the time comes where you have to hold yourself up on your own and that crutch is gone, life gets very difficult.
Wow.
Luckily, I had Matt's couch to crash on. I could have turned. I was dead broke. Like I was broke, and I could have turned pro. Had a signing bonus for at least six figures. I was the reigning champion. It was very likely I could have done that, but I had a thought in my mind. So back when I won my first national championship in 2008, I knew why I was boxing at that point. Again, the only reason why I chose boxing was the free gym. But this was 2008, and remember, reality TV shows were big.
Yep.
I thought
still, I can't keep up.
Oh, I don't even watch TV anymore. But my thought process was if I got good enough at boxing, I might get my own TV show. And to me, I wanted to be a performer. That was my goal. And I spent all this time going after boxing, something I don't even really like, but I enjoyed traveling and it was fun. And I don't mind working hard. So it was relatively easy from that standpoint. So I was like, okay, I'll do this. And because it's way better option than college. I wasn't doing that. So
like I'd rather get hit in the face.
I would rather get punched in the face than sign up for unforgivable debt for the rest of my life.
Well, there's a lesson in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So 2012, I get kicked off the Olympic team, and that cocky, confident person was just the shell of himself. And I looked at my life and I realized like, oh, I put all this time into boxing. Something I don't even love really. I do it because the Olympics would have been cool, but I wanted to be a performer. That's why I thought I was doing this. And I hadn't done any performing. So 2012, my suspension, I started going to open mic comedy nights, and I started hitting open mics because I'm like, maybe I'm not going to get a TV show. I want to go into stand-up comedy. And I started performing comedy, and I quickly realized, I was a broke athlete for all of my 20s. I can't spend my 30s as a broke comic. So I need a pivot. So during the time, because I had time off, I got into boxing because of bullying. So I started going back to schools to talk about bullying and confidence and resilience. And this is just something I did as a hobby. And when following year 2013, after the suspension, I fight in the first nationals. I reclaim my spot as captain of the national team. Amazing. I win nationals every year up to 2016. But before I returned to boxing, I realized that boxing had taken everything from me, and I didn't put myself in a position to get a return on it. So I knew I wasn't going to go to college. So I was like, okay, I got to box again. But for me to get back into boxing, first thing I need to do is I need to lose the weight that I gained, because I started to drink a lot and eat a lot without being an athlete. So I gained about 70 pounds during my suspension. It's funny how that happens so quickly. It was a very dark, I make light of it now, but it was a very dark time.
Yeah.
And I was trying to lose the weight, and I couldn't do it. And I was beating myself up every day, and I was calling myself a loser, and I was calling myself fat. And then a light bulb went off in my head. There's a difference between me in 2012 when I was suspended and me that walked to high school in my senior year. One of us liked me. And then I started to think about what we think about. Yeah. And it actually came in a funny way, and I don't usually share this, but let's have fun. So I was told not to read the comments. I read the comments.
Yeah.
And because I was cocky, I would flip in the ring. I wore a pink skirt. I did dances. I was fun. And people don't like fun people, right? So when I got suspended, one of the top comments I got was, I bet he's humble now.
Ooh,
Hit my
ouch.
soul.
People are so lovely.
Aren't they? But then I thought about it. Isn't humility a good thing?
Yeah. Depends on what you do with it.
No. Then I looked in the definition. Do you have your phone on you right now?
I do. You're going to be,
Look up the definition of humble. And
okay, I'm
while you
doing
look
it.
it up, I'll explain. While she looks it up. So once I figured this out, and this was during my 2012 suspension, it changed the way I look at my entire life. Okay. And you ready? Now, when you read this definition, I want you to think of hunter.
Okay. So it's having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance.
Would you wish that on hunter?
No.
Maybe there's a second definition.
Of low social, administrative, or political rank.
Ooh, that doesn't
Just
sound good either.
lower in dignity or importance.
And the reason why that is the Latin root word for that is humilis, which is lowly. So let's say you're killing it in the podcasting world, right?
Yeah.
You run into a podcaster who's not. What do we usually do in this situation?
Right.
We humble ourselves down to where they are. So my question is, who does being humble serve? Because obviously it doesn't serve that other person if you're just like them now. And I thought about it, I was like, oh, maybe I don't want to be humble. Maybe I want to take up space, because I don't think the opposite of humility is arrogance.
No.
I believe it's confidence. So I decided I was no longer going to be humble. It wasn't a virtue I wanted to attach myself to. So I decided I was going to start speaking highly of myself the way I would back in high school. 15 hours a week, I was patting myself on the back, tell myself how amazing I was. And then I did amazing things. Now I'm calling myself fat, a loser, and lazy. And I am doing things that fat, lazy losers do. So I was like, okay, I'm going out and I'm going to legally change my last name to Awesome.
I love that.
I am not being humble anymore. And I'm not even going to hide it. I don't care if I make you uncomfortable. If me believing in me makes you uncomfortable, then that's a you problem. So what happens is, if I'm here and you're here, I'm not coming down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift you up to where I am. And if you're not coming with me, I'm going to leave you. But I can't lower myself. You can't tell Hunter to reach for the stars while remaining grounded.
Yep.
And especially as a woman, and even talking about having the name Hunter will give her in positions that men would usually get in because of her name. As a woman, women are conditioned to be smaller, not speak as loud, not inconvenience men. I believe, like every culture, like the Jewish people, Mexicans with the quinceañeras, there's all these ceremonies to show when you're no longer 14-year-old Marissa and when you're 34-year-old Marissa. When does your uncle stop treating you like 16-year-old Marissa and start treating you like a woman?
Yeah. This is mind-blowing because it's amazing the category that we've put the word humble in, right? That we've somehow justified humble to be this notable, honorable thing. But you really, I talk about it. Like, who is being humble actually serving? Is it serving you? Is it serving anyone? Like, where's the value in lowering yourself? Ultimately, we should be rising all tides, right? That's, I mean, this is a leadership podcast. We want to lift people up, not to lower ourselves.
And I hear your listeners already what they're thinking. Being humble doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking about yourself less. Marissa, you are a grown woman. Who's supposed to think about you if not you? Take care of yourself. Put your mask on before you put somebody else's mask on.
Yes. Yeah.
And I do understand there's a religious meaning behind it, completely separate from what I'm talking about. Have your faith, believe in what you believe in. I believe in what I believe in. Also, you can keep that a secret too.
That's a whole other conversation that you had earlier. You know, it's funny because these stories we tell ourselves. I mean, I do hot yoga a couple times a week, and they're always like, leave the stories at the door, because it's no longer your emotions or your bad day. It's like, what is like swirling around in your brain? What is on repeat? What is the highlight reel? What are you believing? And the reality is, if we're not there calling ourselves awesome, thinking that we can do this, who's showing up behind us to tell us these things? And it has a direct impact on how we show up in the world. And obviously you change your name to Awesome. And yes, the F is exactly the word that you think it is. We just can't say it on this podcast, but you are correct, listener.
So when I went to City Hall to get this done, and I've never been to court. I showed up to court in a pink suit because I thought it'd be funny. Didn't work out the way I thought it would.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway,
You should have your own TV show, but that's another story.
I thought, because I understood I wanted to speak to the youth because that was important to me, and I understood being Cam Fossum would be inappropriate. Honestly, I wanted to be Dr. Fossum. You can't legally change your first name to Doctor. They won't allow it. And also, if I did Fossum, then it would be deemed inappropriate. So at schools, I'm Cam Awesome. Everywhere else, I'm Cam F Awesome. And the F stands for family, friendship, or Philip if you're French.
Actually, Philip in French is PH. It's Philippe.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, then probably not.
This is going rogue. I can't speak for all the Philippes out there. So.
I made that one up. I don't know too many French Philippes.
Well, I am fluent in French, Cam, so I'm going to keep you honest in this one, okay?
Oh, I need that. Yeah, I need that.
Anytime.
Keep me honest. Don't keep me humble.
No, I will not. No, that was so great. I appreciate you sharing that because it's a good reminder to ourselves. And then when you put it in the perspective of your child, and this is where, I'm in the business of coaching, you give a lot of talks. Sometimes I need people to hear advice that I'm giving through the lens of this was your child. So, we put ourselves under pressure that we would never put someone else under. We have expectations of ourselves that we would never have of someone else. And we endure things that we would never ask people that we love to endure. And, the narratives we have for other people, it's true. It's like one day my daughter's going to grow up and she's going to think the crazy things that have swirled through my brain my entire life about, am I good enough? Am I tall? Am I too big? Am I too small? Am I loud enough? Am I bossy? Am I bitchy? Like pick the words, right? And I don't want that for her. So, all the things that we can do now to get her to that place is better off. Okay. So you change your name. And this propels you in this new direction in your career.
Yeah.
Yes. And what happens after that? Because I want to get to all the great stuff that you're doing now, but let's continue with the boxing. You change your name, you move forward. Where does that take you?
So I changed my last name to Awesome. I returned to boxing, and I do it as no longer a boxer, but an entertainer. So when I was an athlete, and I tell this to athletes all the time, I stopped identifying as an athlete. Because sports can be taken away from me. I am amazing because of me. The outcomes that happen is not why I'm amazing. That's just the feedback of me being amazing. Wow. Because if you put your value in the outcome and the outcome doesn't turn out the way you want, you are completely deflated.
Right.
So I built me up, and I started to build me up, and I was no longer an athlete. I was an entertainer. And I started talking to other athletes around me. I'm like, hey, what's your plan? You're 28. You have 2 kids. You have no education, and you don't know how to do anything other than fight.
Yeah.
Once 30, you're old. What are we doing with our life for after sports? And that was my thing. And everyone's like, why don't you just turn pro? And I had a thought. I was like, I could just start a business and be worth more as I get older. So the reason why I never want to turn pro in boxing is 35 is old, or 40 is dead.
You have a shelf life. Yeah.
You have a shelf life. And as you get older, then you get more desperate for fights. You start fighting people you shouldn't have fight in the first place, and your reflexes aren't as good as they were when you were young.
Are we talking
and
about
no one wants to let that go. That's another example. And that's him at 60. People, this is at 35. Mike Tyson's already a millionaire. So my thought was, if I get into performing or speaking, the older I get, so in the speaking world, the older I get, the more I'm worth.
Yeah,
the longer I speak, the better I am. The opposite goes with sports.
Yeah, that's great. That's true.
But I had to bet on myself because I was broke, and I could have just turned pro and made millions. And I bet on myself, even though I knew it would take a long time. So my plan was I was going to do every interview. I was going to have fun. I was going to promote myself. I was in 3 documentaries. I traveled the country. If I fought in, let's say, San Francisco on Saturday, I'd reach out to comedy clubs and say, hey, I could perform Thursday and Friday night. And then I would reach out to schools and I would speak Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, do comedy Thursday and Friday, and then fight on Saturday. And that's how I started moving and everyone thought it was crazy, but I was like, I don't care about boxing anymore. Boxing is just a degree. I looked at national championships as college degrees. Whereas if you have a bachelor's degree, if you have an associate's degree and I have a national championship and we apply for the same marketing job, who do you think's getting it?
I really hope I am with this winning smile,
It's a
but
great smile, though. It is a
it was
great
yours though.
smile.
Darn it. Yeah. No, it's true, honestly, and there's so much to be learned in sports, but I think it's what you take of it. Like if you use sports as something to propel you in the direction where you want it to go and to create a life after sports. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of I mean the stats are real on CEOs and business owners and executives and people go off and do things who use sports to propel them there, to build the character, to build the resilience, to build their relationship with failure and teamwork and all those great things. And I love how your ability, your mindset, like your mind is such an incredibly powerful thing. How you figure it out, first of all, to get to that place, because there's also something in sports where you can't think about tomorrow. You can't think about, like, it's here now, put it all on the line, don't overthink it or else you're going to get distracted. But you were thinking bigger picture in so many ways. You weren't just in it. You were really thinking about how could this help me tomorrow and in 10 years from now, which is so rare. Like the power of your mind. I'm curious because you're still like this. How do you nurture this mind of yours, this mindset?
Well, ask yourself, what's your backup plan? Is it that bad?
Yeah.
My backup plan is terrible. I don't have a backup plan. It's homelessness. It is like when I was boxing, I had nothing, and there was no one like I could fall back on. So I didn't have a choice. It's like, why'd you do it? Because one, I wasn't going to do well in college, and I was going to
Right.
sign up for that debt, and two, there was no other choice. But then once I realized that if you believe in yourself and you do the things that most people don't want to do, which is the hard work, like meritocracy might not be 100% like down, but for the most part, skill access wise, meritocracy messes up the equation. But the whole idea is if you work hard, you'll get better at something. And I wasn't like, if I get punched, I could start a business. Like,
Well,
and
yeah, you're taking all these, your work ethic, your training, your ability, your stamina, your resilience, all of that is going to serve you in this next stage of your life. It just looks different.
yeah, it looks, and I love that. And I'm not special by any way. There's so many athletes out there, and I would hire an athlete before I hired someone with a college degree because the athlete understands, depending on the athlete, would understand adversity, how to deal with losing, how to
Mm-hmm.
bounce back. Like, think about others like football. You take like Patrick Mahomes just took a pretty bad loss, and
Yeah.
now I'm excited to see how does he respond to that.
Right.
We saw how Jalen Hurts responded to his loss. He put his phone screensaver of him losing the Super Bowl to the Chiefs 2 years ago and kept it for 2 years. Like
You can update it now.
athletes have that built. Yeah, he can update it now, but athletes have that. And the thing
Yeah.
is, like, does he want to?
Maybe. Maybe
Because
not.
I got over 400, close to 400 wins in boxing. I'm less now, but I was definitely not a religious person back in the day. And as captain of the team, some guys would want to spend time after the workout praying. And I'm like, no, not on my time. We're here to work out. And now I look back at it. If I could have just taken 45 seconds to make someone on my team feel more comfortable to perform even better, as captain, why was I not doing that? And I think as leaders, we should look back at all our mistakes, think about it and make it, because I don't feel good about it, saying that even out loud or admitting that. But now I've used that as a lesson to be a better leader in the future.
It's funny you say that. A friend of mine that I had on my last episode talked about the definition of a leader. And he's like, it's got to be someone who makes mistakes and admits them out loud. Right. And then finds a way to go back. I mean, we get put in leadership positions sometimes because we're the most experienced, or we've been there the longest, or you're like, you could be in charge, but being in charge is different than being a leader. And I think that's the distinction that maybe you're trying to make. Like, you were the guy in charge, but you're thinking now as a leader, I want to show up differently. I want to express leadership differently.
Yeah. And also, people don't have ears, they have eyes.
Fair.
Yeah.
Touché. I'm curious about your keynote speaking. You mentioned you have a talk on that. So you're an amazing speaker. Everyone can hear it. I've seen you in action for 4 minutes. You're incredible. You travel all over to give talks. So anyone out there want to hire an amazing speaker, what are some of the topics that you love speaking on? Like, what inspires you, and what messages do you love sharing?
Ooh, right now. And like, I've done a few talks where people want to hear about boxing, but like, I'll get bored with that. And I'm fascinated with how the human brain works.
Oh yeah.
And I found out about your reticular activating system. Are you familiar?
Yes.
So your brain takes in billions of bits of information. It filters it through your reticular activating system, and it goes from billions of bits, filters out to about 35 bits. And the 35 you get is what's relevant to you. What you seek is what you find. Mm-hmm. How much time do you spend thinking about what you're seeking?
So true. Yeah.
So I one of the big things I like to speak about is, how do you create the reality you want to exist in? So my friend, I don't mention her name anymore because we shouldn't do that, but she loves murder mysteries. Okay. She listens to murder mystery podcasts all day at work. She works from home.
My best friend does as well, and I think there's something wrong with her. So
and then in the evening she watches murder mysteries. Also so to sum up her day, she listens to people get murdered all day. She watches people get murdered in the evening. She likely dreams of people being murdered.
Yeah.
You'll never guess this about my friend. She has anxiety.
Shocking.
We create the reality we exist in. We pulled into a parking lot and she said, this would be a great place to murder a person.
She is right, but
she's right. So, but you think all she does is watch people get murdered. That's what she's on the look for in her life. So when you start the news, you get your coffee in the morning, you start the day with the news in the back. It's literally genocide, murder, death, rape, all of those things. And that's your background music, that low vibration. So if you see that, if you start your day looking for that, what do you think you're going to find in your everyday life when you leave your house?
100%. Yep. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, be careful what you watch before bed. Be careful what you let in. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So a talk on that. What else?
Yeah. So another thing I do as well, I'm very passionate about, is I do a daily gratitude practice.
Yes.
Where every morning I wake up, because the way your brain works, what you seek is what you find. Every morning I wake up, I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for.
Oh, wow. And he's showing us
I've never missed
as proof.
I've never missed a morning. I've been doing this every morning since July 26th of 2021.
Good for you.
And because if you go shopping for a yellow car, you don't buy it, but after that you start seeing yellow cars everywhere.
Yep.
It's your reticular activating system. The second you said, hey, this is relevant to me, you start finding it. So if you start your day looking for yellow cars, you'll start seeing yellow cars every day. If I start my day looking for things to be grateful for, what do you think I start finding? So the idea, the overall theme of my talk is, if you can fail without being discouraged, success becomes inevitable.
Unbelievable.
How do you stop yourself from being discouraged? And it's by having a positive internal dialogue, by doing actual things that bring you joy, happiness, and bring light to your life. Unlike celebrity gossip, drama, and reality TV shows. No shade to any of them. We all have our trash TVs that we love. I'm not a Broad City. Chef's kiss. Those two women can write a sitcom. But I only watch happy things with my life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a conversation with a friend a while ago. She talked about this show or that show. I'm like, if it is not a mindless comedy, I don't watch it. Oh, and I have an addiction to sports documentaries, which I was so excited to watch. Yes, I've watched, you name it, I've probably watched it. It's like this weird thing that not a lot of people know about me unless you live with me. But yeah, I just watch happy stuff. Happy. I used to, it's funny you say that. I used to be obsessed with CSI back in the day, and I used to just watch it before I went to bed. I mean, it was a good show and there was some good eye candy, if we're being honest. But I was living alone at the time, downtown Toronto, in a condo. And I would get very paranoid about someone following me or breaking into my 8th floor condo somehow by like rappelling themselves down the side of the building or somehow leaping onto my balcony. And it just became, and then I stopped watching it and I didn't think like that anymore. I wasn't worried about all the bad things that were potentially waiting for me around every corner. So that is why I only watch happy things all the time. I am definitely not letting you go without doing some rapid fire.
I'm here for it.
Are you ready for it? Do you want to stretch a little bit, maybe? Are you good? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So I'm dying to know if awesome was already taken. What was the backup for your last name?
Fossum.
Okay. Finish this sentence. The key to success in life is
doing what you want when you want, even if you have to do things you don't want to do to be able to do things you want to do.
Love it. What are some words of wisdom you wish you could go back and share with that younger self of yours?
You're 100% right. Being an adult is stupid. No one knows what they're doing. Try everything you want to.
Oh, these are good. Who is the most maybe famous or known person that you've met and that you were inspired by?
Ooh, that's a good question. And this is supposed to be rapid fire. I don't know too many famous. I can tell you there's a guy named Kerry Phillips.
Okay.
He's not famous by any means, but he used to be an attorney. Then he retired. He's a speaker now, and he's 69 years old, and he does whatever he wants. And like during the pandemic, he started doing these acting roles through virtual Zoom, and he started like an acting career at like 68. And he called me up to tell me we went to Atlanta for his first big acting gig, and he's now a professional because he's with SAG. And it was like he got 3 days. He went. He paid for his hotel. He paid for his flight. He paid for his food, and he made $25 a day, and he was so happy. And the joy that brought him wasn't the money; it was the fact that he got to do something else. He started doing stand-up comedy with me. He performs. I threw my first show here in Austin. He flew from Kansas City to perform. I did not pay him at all. Like, it was a very small show. Not a lot of people showed up. But the fact he gets to do, when I say the key to the success of life is do what you want, he does what he wants, and I see that. And he doesn't live this crazy, extravagant life. He's simple, and he does what he wants. And I see that, and that's what I strive to do.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I'm not sure I would do a stand-up comedy, but who knows? Maybe one day.
We might convince you to do that.
Maybe. I'm sure I've done crazier things. If you hadn't gotten into boxing and you hadn't gotten into speaking, where else do you think you would have ended up in life?
Oh, now that I understand how my brain works, I could probably done anything I wanted to. It's like whatever I felt like doing at the time. If it wasn't a boxing gym, if it was a gymnastics gym, if it was a coding center, whatever it was, I'm obsessive, and I would just be good at, and not naturally good. I might suck for a little bit, but I'd stick with it long enough to do whatever it is I wanted to do.
Good answers. Okay. So where can people find you? Because they're definitely going to want to learn more about you and follow you. So how do people find you?
You can find me at CamFAwesome on all social media and CamFAwesome.com. I'm a 12-time national champion heavyweight, former captain of the USA national boxing team. And as captain of the USA national team, I would travel to other countries, and I've been to over 30 countries representing Team USA, and my job was to find the do's and don'ts about each country, like Azerbaijan, and relay the message to my teammates so we don't make ourselves look like idiots in other countries. From doing that, I've learned a lot about cultural communication, so I speak about cultural communication within the workplace.
Okay.
I also speak about mindset and resilience and having a positive internal dialogue. So yeah, the first one is more of a workshop. The second one is my keynote. I can make both of them into keynote. But also, if anyone has any questions, or if you disagree with anything I said in a good way, that like a way to challenge me, which I love to be challenged, shoot me a message, even if it's the humility thing. Like, because I tested the humility thing a lot with people because I know it's a very sensitive thing because it's a virtue people hold dearly to themselves. And when because the reason why I don't tell the definition, I memorized it. It's more powerful when you read it yourself.
Oh, I had no idea. That was an interesting exercise, reading what the definition of humble is. And I encourage people to do it. It was shocking. But yeah, I would encourage everybody to reach out to Cam. Also, tell him how amazing he is. Go share this podcast. If you're booking speakers, or just follow him and encourage him. It was such a pleasure meeting you. You were one of the highlights of that trip to Nashville for me. You have a contagious energy. You are so lovely. And I really hope that we get to connect again in person one day. I wish you the absolute best. I have no doubt this is just the beginning. We'll be saying, that one time when I had Cam on my podcast, and I'll be so excited to say that we got to chat in this way once upon a time. And I really do wish you all the best. And thank you for all your words of wisdom today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And I can't wait for part 2.
Sounds good. You take care. See you, friend.
Take care.
Bye.